Yet in holding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
Armor of Truth.
A scientific, technological elite. That the public policy itself, that is your government, could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite. Plausible deniability is how this is worked out on the people. That is the ability to deny any involvement in something illegal or unethical because there is no clear evidence to prove the involvement. The lack of evidence makes the denial credible or plausible. It's like the mafia don. He doesn't go out and whack the guy himself. He has someone do it for him. And he doesn't know the details. His hands are clean, but they're not. The use of the tactic of plausible deniability implies forethought, such as intentionally setting up the conditions to plausibly avoid responsibility for one's future actions. The term is used both in law and in politics. In politics, plausible deniability usually applies to the practice of keeping the leadership of a large organization uninformed about illicit actions that the organization is carrying out. The leaders then have plausible deniability if they are ever questioned about those illicit actions. In other words, they truly don't know the details of what happened, of any illegal actions, and so they are automatically clear of blame among men, but not before God. In modern politics, the term plausible deniability often comes up in discussions of political campaigns. Plausible deniability allows candidates to keep their hands clean when their campaigns or their supporters use unsavory tactics and launch dirty attacks against their opponents. Plausible deniability can also refer to a politician's attempt to test the waters by quietly trying out how the public might respond to this or that. And this is something that's run on the public constantly. Politicians, bureaucrats, and corporate spokesmen speak with a deliberate lack of clarity, using a combination of nonverbal communication, dog whistles, and implication in order to make allegations, avoid incriminating oneself, and ultimately remain free and clear of any responsibility. So the question we're asking here tonight, folks, is America under attack?
Okay, we're being controlled by technocrats, technical experts. The government is in cahoots with the corporations. We're definitely being attacked, and it's all plausible deniabilities.
In earlier centuries, the ruling class controlled the masses through the more mystical belief systems, particularly sun worship. But this would all change. There was a shift from a theocracy of the sun to a theocracy of science. As the sun and moon cult lost some of its popularity, scientists were quick to take up some of the slack. According to their propaganda, the physical laws of the universe were the ultimate causative factors, and naturally those physical laws were only fathomable by the scientific elite, the holders of all that is true, the deciders, the experts. The official state-sanctioned religion of this theocracy, scientism. A scientific worldview that encompasses natural explanations for all phenomena. Paradoxically, scientism is underpinned by two forms of mysticism, empiricism and materialism. It is the religious conviction of the Masonic Lodge, for example, and its elite masters that science will eventually enable humanity to regain its lost divinity. We have forgotten who we are. This is the core doctrine of scientism. This form of epistemological imperialism is not to be confused with legitimate science. the pursuit of scientific truths. The application of man's God-given talents for the production of appropriate technology on a human scale is a valuable, useful tool for mankind. Scientism is science gone mad. Suddenly, ostensible control over everything knowable becomes the divine providence of godlike bookkeepers. Meanwhile, their opponents become heretics and are burned at the stake. Or today, that means marginalized by academia, marginalized by society and the government, kicked out of the public square, which makes it possible the complete mental, spiritual, and physical enslavement of mankind through technologies, control over information in general, a state of affairs symbolized by the all-seeing eye above the unfinished pyramid on the U.S. $1 bill. This ritualistic enthronement and deification of the elite's bookkeepers reveals the satanic foundation of scientism. The scientific dictatorship represents the highest aspirations of the adversary himself. It is the theocracy of Satan. Well, last year around this time, the news cycle was saturated with stories of what certainly seemed like an open attack on all of us. Do you remember what it was? It was the attack on food manufacturing facilities in the United States. For about 3 months, an average of one major food manufacturing plant per week burned to the ground, for a total of like 16 of them. At the same time, reports were circulating of mass culling of livestock, including the kind that provide Americans with food. Also, traditional American farms were attacked in many ways financially. An unusual spike in accidents, crashes, fires, other disasters involving direct threats to the lives of Americans, short-term and long-term. And at the very least, it's a continuing narrative where the public is pitted against cold, detached bureaucrats and the scientific dictatorship. That is the New World Order, as it flexes its truth-flouting transhuman biceps as often as possible. And the message you'll take from this is, hey, look, we believe science.
For folks in East Palestine, a small town, only 4,000 or 5,000, it's deja vu all over again. Another day just brings more news of them getting a really raw deal after that train derailment and millions of pounds of chemicals spilled in their town. Good news, though, is scientists say everything is fine. State officials did a dog and pony show laughing at how good the tap water tastes.
We believe in science.
There you go. We believe in science.
So we don't feel like we're being your guinea pig, but we don't mind proving to you that we believe the water's safe.
Okay.
Here's to Caroline.
I appreciate that.
Here's to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Awesome.
That's good.
Oh, that's real good.
This is really,
Infuriating? Is that the word you're looking for?
yeah, it's infuriating and it's grieving, and you're just kind of wondering, like, okay, is this just a set, or are these people really that trusting that they're just going to drink the tap water? Like, really?
Well, look, it's kind of like this. All things being equal, let's just assume that everything has it's been reported. Look, nothing it's not like someone's going to drink the water and if they fall over dead right there, oh, well, it's bad. And if they don't fall over dead, it's safe. That's what they want you to think. That's how they want you to think that science works.
Or
Look,
if
we
they
believe in
really have
science.
to drink that tap water, you know, what are they thinking? The people that are actually drinking that water as they're doing it, they're like, oh man, okay, I guess
I got to think that
bought the farm.
The Governor DeWine, he's there in the on the left there, guy that looks like he needs a brush, and a hairbrush. And EPA Administrator Michael Regan there, and this guy, they see the guy on the right side of the screen there, he's not looking all that excited about having taken. But, you know, they did it. Give them credit for...
But he trusts the science. Yeah, and we've been psyoped to death, so nobody knows what exactly they're looking at anymore.
This is just a more cleaner clip.
That makes us feel better.
Did you catch that? It makes us feel better. Let me put the captions on for those who might not.
Because they have to spell out what they want you to think.
That's pitiful.
Awesome.
That's good.
That makes us feel better.
And they're just reassuring everybody, we'll continue. We're going to hang around. We're not going to leave you. We're going to be here. We'll come back and drink as much of this water as you want.
Here's to you. Okay.
Okay. So we believe the science, right? Is this a joke of some kind?
But I will tell you from one of the people that we spoke with yesterday from East Palestine, she said to us, look, when I take a shower, my skin burns, I have nausea, I have constant headaches, and I don't believe that this is safe to drink, that the soil is safe to plant anything in, and that the air is safe to breathe. What do you tell someone who's having symptoms like this? And she's not the only one.
Well, you know, I think that they have a lot of trauma in that community.
Boy, now let's just stop right there. This is not a good start. His answer to the people who are having symptoms.
Yeah, so he's like implying that it's psychosomatic.
What? They got a lot of trauma there, right? Let's just understand, they've had a lot of trauma. What they're feeling is probably not from the chemicals. It's probably from the trauma. That's gaslighting. Trained gaslighters. That's another way to look at plausible deniability. It's gaslighting.
It is.
And people are experiencing a lot of things. The first thing I would say is anybody experiencing...
Do you remember the definition that we just gave of plausible deniability? Right, saying something without saying anything. Implying damaging things, right? Without ever actually saying it. Using a combination of nonverbal communication, dog whistles, and implication to avoid incriminating oneself. Now that's where Regan is sitting right now. He has this job because he's good at this. He doesn't have this job because he knows a lot about toxins and chemicals.
They should seek medical attention from their primary doctor.
Yeah, don't come to us with your complaints about you. Go to your doctor with that. We don't want to hear about it.
Or, I see them, I hear them. I'm not second guessing their experiences. What I can say is the water that has been tested and the air that has been tested is coming back with no adverse health impact levels.
What is that? No adverse health impact levels. What is that? What is no adverse health impact levels? This right here is the head honcho at the EPA, but science is at the core of what they do. The Environmental Protection Agency.
It's supposed to make us feel protected and safe.
You would think that the head of the EPA would have a strong knowledge of the science that he believes in so much.
You're saying you believe them, that they are going through these things, but you can't test everything. Is it possible that some of these contaminants have made it into areas where they have not been tested and that there is still a danger there in East Palestine?
Listen, I trust the data. I trust the science.
Here we go. Over and over again. So you're saying you believe them, these people who actually lived there where this happened, who are actually impacted by this, whose lives may never be the same. No, he says, I trust the data. I believe the science. I don't believe these human beings who come to me.
From day one, we have been on the ground along with the state doing the testing. At EPA, we've deployed aerial testing, an airplane, high-tech airplane. We've deployed...
What does that even mean? We've deployed high-tech
Hey,
airplane.
man, listen, you people need to just feel, because we got a high-tech airplane. We got a high-tech airplane, man. What are you so worried about?
It goes around and it tests every single thing possible.
We got
known to
drones.
man.
Summer, relax. We got drones. We got drones. What are you worried about? This guy.
Mobile testing, a van that is going in and out of the communities.
One van, just
We got a van. We got a van. Don't talk to me about you're growing 3 arms. We got a van, man.
And we have tested the indoor air quality of over 550 homes. Nothing is coming back that shows adverse health impacts. I also trust the testing protocol of the state. They have a very rigorous testing model, and they've tested the municipal water.
I know what's rigorous right now. The muscles in the back of his neck are pretty rigorous. That's for sure.
Have that well water tested, though, because, we want to be aware of who might actually have well water, too.
Yeah, well, we can't have that. In the future, you're not going to be allowed to have that well water.
And so we are encouraging everyone, seek medical attention, ensure that the state and
talking points that he was given before he came out here today. Tell people to seek medical attention. All the reports are coming back to us. There's no adverse medical impacts. That must have been written on. He's got 2 or 3 talking points and he's hitting them. And he ain't saying anything though. He's not saying a word. He's not really answering any questions. He definitely doesn't believe the people.
As we force Norfolk Southern to take full accountability for what they've done, Norfolk Southern will pay for everything, and anything that we...
Nobody really cares about that, right? What are they actually testing for? How reliable are their tests? We don't really know. Nobody that lives there really knows. They just have to trust what they're told.
We're going to use the full extent of our oversight and enforcement to hold Norfolk Southern accountable.
Nobody cares how much you're going to fine. The people that live there don't care what you're going to fine Norfolk Southern. They want some assurance that their lives aren't going to be completely derailed.
The communities in these places that have dealt with something like this or that have had contaminated water, whether it be lead or bacteria, do not trust that they are going to be cared for. Yes. They don't trust the federal government, they don't trust the state government, they don't trust their local government, and they don't trust the companies who have done some of this in those specific cases. What are you going to do about the lack of trust?
Does anybody there or anywhere else have any reason to mistrust government officials today? Be a little bit leery about whether or not these officials actually have their best interest at heart.
Our sole goal is to win back and earn the trust of the community. We recognize that there's a trust deficit. I sat down and did a community roundtable. I visited homes in the ground of East Palestine. I know that a trust deficit exists. They gave us some very prescribed solutions, and we're going to try to act on those. Part of it is just being extremely transparent and making information available and allowing them to...
Yeah. For example, let's test what he just said. We want to be extremely transparent. Okay, how are you doing your testing? How about right here in this interview on CNN, explain how your testing is being done? He's not being transparent because they're not going to tell you that they use Norfolk Southern scientists to do the testing. It's probably a conflict of interest to let their scientists do the testing. So enough of that. Enough. Let's let Mr. Regan off the hook now. The mainstream media has been reporting on this really in such a way as to try to downplay the danger of the chemical exposure. Saying things like in the narrative, these train derailments, they're pretty common. They happen all the time. That might be true. Trains derailing, accidents on the tracks, it's fairly common. There are thousands a year. But that's not the point here. Train derailments that release hundreds of thousands of pounds, or it's hundreds of thousands of gallons, it's millions of pounds of toxic, noxious chemicals, gases, and toxins into the environment and into whole towns of people, and then blowing up, controlled burn, of toxic chemicals without really notifying residents of all the risks. That is not common.
Just kind of going through some of the rumors and narratives and psyops that are in circulation. Here are just a few of them. That the chemical spill is just an excuse to get people farmers off the land and take away vital farming land to grow food, that this disaster serves to create more economic hardship and chaos. So some people are just point blank saying they're going to make, maybe it's not technically as dangerous as what we think, and really it's just like a land grab. It's a way to disrupt farming. Some conspiracists are saying that this is just another invisible boogeyman, a chemical poison for everyone to get hysterical over, that we are once again being inundated with fear about death and things that can kill us, and the idea that people in power want us dead, right? Another one, that this is history's most deadly chemical spill that is multi-generational. It's dioxin, and it's going to kill millions, plant, human, animal life for years to come. Another one, another narrative, that America is being attacked by a foreign enemy that's linked to the flight pattern of the Chinese balloons that went across the country. Yeah, so there's people out there saying that. Another one, that the globalist WEF Agenda 21 plan is going according to schedule, and that Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street are using their corporate immunity, privilege, and assets to set off strategic attacks to further the agenda, the 21 Agenda 21 plans. Yeah, so we take a look at that. Okay, who are the top 10 owners of Norfolk Southern Corporation? And there they are: Vanguard Group, BlackRock, State Street.
These are also majority stakeholders in mainstream media. So the very people who actually own majority stakes in this also have control of the narrative.
Yeah. CNN, Fox News, ABC News, NBC News, CBS News, and there you go. Look at them all. Yeah, there's sort of obviously a blackout about all of that, right? I mean, there's a couple people talking about this, but very few and far between. Another narrative that we're hearing about is that the Democrats are attacking the Republican red states, and that the country is further being divided by this, that's a strategy. It's fine to drink the water. People should go home and get on with their lives. That they just need to stop being led by the quote-unquote misinformation out there. And while we're at it, let's take a look at the latest MSM article today. Is something also super disturbing, and I think it's meant to be. They're saying that around 2 million gallons of firefighting water from the train derailment site are expected to be disposed of in Harris County, Texas, at a place called Texas Molecular.
Weird.
It's a weird story. Texas Molecular was hired to dispose of the dangerous water from the train derailment. And the company is receiving about 20 trucks of water, of this contaminated water, a day. And they actually are saying that so far it's not really known how the water is being transported. So we're left to wonder, will there be another accident with the transport of this contaminated water?
It's just sitting right, it's just right there waiting to happen, right? It's such an opportunity for that to happen all over again.
And then there's the conspiracy of why the CDC changed the toxic ratings for vinyl chloride. There was this interview the CDC told PolitiFact today, quote, "It is purely coincidental with respect to this accident and in fact fortuitous, as it provides information on minimal risk levels for this chemical and other critical information." So they're taking this as an opportunity to say how fortuitous and how fortunate that we had a chance to go in and update the data to show that vinyl chloride is not as dangerous as we thought. Hearing the CDC make these statements does not necessarily make me personally feel like there's any less.
You don't get that. You don't get the warm fuzzies.
Yeah.
No warm fuzzies on that.
Doesn't necessarily say to me that there's nothing strange going on. And then, of course, the elephant in the living room is that the issue and focus is not vinyl chloride per se, but rather what happened when the burned and combined the other cargo and the chemicals, when that all collaborated together to burn in the train. They're just saying that this is the largest dioxin plume in world history. So there's all these rumors circulating.
Conspiracy theorists think a plane crash killing 5 scientists was orchestrated to halt an investigation into toxic train derailment. Folks, whether or not that's actually what happened here, once again, does that kind of thing ever happen? Has that ever happened? Has it ever happened in Little Rock, Arkansas? Has it? Come on, man. Now, some of you might be too young to remember the early 90s, and when Bill Clinton was governor in Arkansas, the things that went down there at the Mena airport, the two teenage boys who were now this is not, folks, this is not conspiracy theory. These things happened. These two boys were murdered. They found their bodies on the train tracks, and they didn't die on the tracks. They got too close to a large operation where cocaine was being. We're on YouTube, right? I have to be.
Yes, we are on YouTube.
Folks, if you don't see us next week, this is why. Where they were flying cocaine in from South America into this Mena airport. That was Barry Seal was the guy there. They made a movie about Barry Seal. Tom Cruise played him. And they brought cocaine into the Mena airport. Now this was a CIA operation, and they used the Mena airport because Bill Clinton was the governor there. This is a friendly place, and so he had control of all the state troopers. These two boys, these two teenagers, got a little too close. They started snooping around the airport there. They started, this is the kind of thing that can't get out. We can't let this operation is working so well. This is along the same time when the crack cocaine epidemic breaks out in South Central Los Angeles. How did the crack get there to LA? And then you had this crack epidemic. Now,
yeah, it's just like the classic, why would you think that there's a conspiracy going on?
Like this article here, conspiracy theorists, crazy conspiracy. There's absolutely no reason for anybody to be thinking anything like this, of course, right? Little Rock, Arkansas, folks, they're never going to live that down. So if a plane crashes with scientists in it right after, in a time like this when we see the government really trying to cover things up and they're corrupt, they cannot be trusted. Look, whether or not they were taken down or not, people are justified in being suspicious about all of this right now.
Yeah, and then, you line that up with the sheer number of chemical fires, explosions, fires this week, and they try to normalize this in generating facts and figures to sort of show how this is something that happens in reality. People in power, right? People in power, they get tips that allow them to prepare ahead. Like they're going to try to cash in to get a bit of a insurance policy, or just cut losses before a major event takes place, or perhaps they have a real insider knowledge. So you see all these explosions in these warehouses and all this chaos and these burnings and stuff like that too. So there could be a component of people are going, okay, everything's the crap's about to hit the fan. Let me just go ahead and get in and try to level my business so that I can cut my losses and get out of here before things get crazy. The main thing too is they can just hide their deliberate attacks behind excuses of human error, which once again comes back to the plausible deniability.
Transformation of the world into a scientific dictatorship has not happened overnight. It's been a slow, gradual process. In fact, gradualism has been the key to this, because the scientific dictatorship is founded on evolutionary theory. And evolution is a theory of gradual development. In fact, gradual development from non-life to life, which is insane. Richard Gardner delineated this piecemeal strategy in his Foreign Affairs article titled The Hard Road to World Order. Instant world government is unattainable. They're playing the long game. That is what Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century, is all about. It has been at least in the works since 1972. At least, probably before that. Well, definitely before that in other forms. But when we're looking at climate issues and environmentalism, that's 72 with the Limits to Growth paper from the Club of Rome. The House of World Order will have to be built from the bottom up rather than from the top down. So that means that they're going to have to get a lot of the people bought into the plan or coerced. that, quote, an end run around national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece, will accomplish more than the old-fashioned frontal assault. This is what I meant earlier when I said this is not about, it's not done with jackboots, soldiers in the streets anymore. It's psychological warfare. The piecemeal approach was the chief method for establishing a worldwide scientific dictatorship through the 20th century. However, the 21st century has seen the elite's patient walk turn into a mad dash. Looking back to 9/11, the September 11th attacks, the Patriot Act, the establishment of the Office of Homeland Security, the war in Afghanistan, the second war in Iraq, these are all examples in the first wave, modern wave of this movement, of how the oligarchs seem to be accelerating their plans. More than a few researchers detect a sense of desperation among the elites. Why are they desperate? Well, the system installed by the technocratic conspiracy for the introduction of a global scientific dictatorship is rapidly disintegrating. Faced with the inevitable dissolution of the various machinations comprising their apparatus of worldwide control, the ruling class is now attempting to stem the tide of destiny. This declension is made evident by three emerging crises. Now, whether or not these are really happening isn't the point. These are three emerging crises in the narrative. One, the collapse of a global financial system. Two, the peaking of worldwide oil production. And third, the lack of consensus among the elites. Now, that third one there, I agree with big time. I don't think they get along. I don't think they always are able to work together. And I will tell you flat out here, they will never succeed in this plan they have. It's just like the Tower of Babel. God will continue to confuse the languages. The closer they think they are to the worldwide unity, just sit back and watch, folks. We know how the story ends. The maintenance of a technocracy calls for technological escalation. This was accomplished through the arms race that accompanied the Cold War. The Cold War ended with the United States outspending the Soviet Empire. And of course, as we know now, there was no real animosity there. There were moneyed elites, powerful elites behind the scenes. The Soviet Empire was just another puppet regime of those who do control the levers in the world, the levers of power in the world. Anthony Sutton, you can look his name up and read some of his books to find out the same people that created the tax-free foundations back in the 20s and 30s and 40s are the same people who were funding the Soviet Empire, funding the Nazi regime, running it all wars are bankers' wars. However, this component of ruling class dominance is beginning to fall apart. Don't fear these men, or fear of man is a snare. Internal conflict among the elites presents a unique problem for these would-be gods of the global scientific dictatorship. There's never been a perfect harmony within the ranks of the elites. However, there has always been enough cohesion just to keep them and to keep the masses in line. After all, the one thing the ruling class parties agree upon is that the commoners must be treated like children and kept in the playpen. As the kings of the New World Order become preoccupied with shaking their fists at one another, the global financial system is breaking down. And the natives are growing restless. You can see this. There's evidence of this in the world. You can see more people than ever are aware that there's a problem. Anthony Sutton made the following observation. Quote, indeed, it is ironic that a dictatorship that claims to be scientific would suppress or ignore scientific progress, would ignore genuine advances in science. This retrogressive paradigm is the very source of the scientific dictatorship's destruction. They have darkened minds. It's what motivates the elite to cling to their occult Darwinian doctrine, despite its state of scientific and logical bankruptcy. It is what inspires them to continue following an insane and unworkable evolutionary script toward the mirage of deification. The reason for the scientific dictatorship's defeat is simple. The Darwinian precept of survival of the fittest, the Hegelian dialectic of managed conflict, Malthusian population control, materialism's rejection of spiritual reality, humanism's contention that the ends justify the means, whatever it takes, by any means necessary. Eugenics, all of it is inherently false and is predicated upon death. Yet the one whom this scientific dictatorship seeks to dethrone holds something far greater than death. In John 10:10, Jesus Christ said, I have come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. The scriptures make it clear. In short, the scientific dictatorship is fighting the very source of life itself, the one true living creator, God Almighty. In doing so, the technocrats have forsaken their own lives and they have embraced death. It is indeed a cult of death. The abortion industry shows us that, screaming and fighting for the right to kill. It is a cult of death. The scientific dictatorship can only end in one way.
Good night, guys. Take care. God bless.
The hammer comes down and beats you over the head for the rest of your life with a big national security stick. And so that people learn to duck their head and not speak up. Because, bad idea now.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. Citizens are advised to take the following steps.
Find us, armoroftruth.net.
In the age of technocracy, scientism, and pop atheism,
Faith is resistance.
Nietzsche, of course, announced the death of God and called for the birth of the Übermensch, the Superman, who would take humanity to new heights and to create a new world order.
Find us at the Armor of Truth YouTube channel.
This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test.